Yes, I've tried to bring up the stuff that's most important in this one, and I haven't brought a lot of details about, for instance, YouTube production. But one that I wanted to include is about the video watch time, because YouTube puts that would be as the most the edge with the most weight, the most important interaction you can have with a YouTube clip is that you actually watch it for a long time, because then YouTube, and they have their own algorithms, they calculate that you liked the clip, and if you watch it to the end, then it also gives you a higher relevance when people are watching and searching for clips. And this has to do with pre-production, how you set up the clip, something that encourages them. I think the video we watched today there was well produced. I said that it was the only video, it was 6 minutes, but it was actually the only video that I wanted to watch all of it, because it engaged me. It always, stuff happened, and the surrounding was new, and so on. Finally, we're going to talk about podcasting. What does time shifting mean in reference to podcast? It means that you do not consume the same time that you that it's published. Like, because other social media as well, like normally Facebook, it's a short time after it's been published that it's there for you to see. But with podcasts, you can actually anytime, you can wait a year and then consume. Even if you haven't downloaded it, you can still stream podcasts a long time after they have been published. And the real, I think you can subscribe to YouTube channels, and you can follow Facebook accounts, but it's still a much closer connection between the creator and the consumer is the syndication with podcasts. That means that you literally subscribe to the podcast. If you listen to a podcast and you think it's interesting, then you hit subscribe on your phone, and then anytime, as soon as they publish a new episode of the podcast, it will automatically show up in your phone, and your phone will tell you that there's a new podcast here. Check it out. And this creates a very strong bond, because only if you go to your phone and you choose to actively erase the podcast, it doesn't matter if you don't listen to it. Like, for instance, on Facebook, if you don't comment and if you don't interact, then the Facebook posts will stop coming. But with a podcast, even if you don't listen to the episodes, they will still come to your phone. And it's called RSS, or Real Simple Syndication. One of the negative features of podcasting, as opposed to advertisement that more clearly focuses on getting you to purchase something, is that it's hard to know whether there is any point in having a podcast. You might record episode after episode, but it's very hard to know whether anything of that work actually has led to you selling more stuff, because podcasts are really about creating a long-term relationship. I have podcasts that I have listened to for many years, for 5 years perhaps, every week. I still haven't bought anything from them, and some podcasts obviously are not commercial, so they're not selling anything. But it's to make you always be aware of the podcast creator. So if you have a company and you publish something every week, then you would like the podcast listener to become your friend. So maybe even if they don't have the need to buy something right now, then maybe 2 years down the line, when they want to buy something, a service that you provide, then they will think of you. But this is really hard to know. So that's why the ROI, or the return on investment. That means if you place an ad in the store and you say that today we have 50% off on everything in Gearheads Den, it's very easy to measure the return on investment, because you can see whether people came to the store that day. If you say, or let's say without a discount, but you just say that we give cake to everyone who comes to the store tomorrow, then you can see, you can count how many people actually came. Did the ad work? Did anyone react to it? And you can also check your cash registry and see, did I sell more this day? And then you can count and see, okay, I spent 500 euros on an ad, and I spent 100 euros for the cake, so that's 600, and I sold only, I made only 400 euros more than a regular day. Well, that's a bad return on your investment, because you actually lost money. But if you sold stuff and you made 1,000 euros more than normally, then that would be good return on your investment, because you paid 600 and you got 1,000 more. So you made 400 more than if you hadn't placed it there. So that's maybe the most direct, it's clearest with traditional media to see if it's worth doing it, and if it's worth investing the time and money. And podcasts are perhaps the hardest to know. If you sit there, you record and publish for year after year, and you don't really know, is it actually any point? About podcasting, personally, I hate podcasts that come out every now and then, because you get a habit of getting the podcast on a special day. My favorite podcast always comes out Friday. Some podcasts come out Tuesday and I want to listen to them. They come out in the morning, so I want to listen to them when I drive to work. And you create habits because you live in a routine. Normally everyone, they commute. They do stuff on a specific day. They do something specific in the weekend. And they start, if you listen to podcasts, you start connecting your daily routine with the podcast. So if you have planned to go to your summer house and listen to a podcast, then if it doesn't come, then you will be disappointed. So you should post consistently. For a podcast, it's probably a good idea to focus on a niche. A niche is to narrow down something to details and to basically to become nerdy about something. So one example could be, you could have a podcast about music, because everyone likes music, right? But then there's going to be 1,000 podcasts about music, so why should they listen to yours? But what if you made a podcast about drum tuning? That could be your niche. That's taking music down to drums, and then drums down to drum tuning. Or you could niche it even more into bass drum tuning, for instance. Because then maybe you are the only podcast. So it's not going to be relevant for everyone, but for those that are really interested in bass drum tuning or drum tuning, they will get very happy when they see your podcast. And and they will start listening to you. And for them, the content is very relevant. And today, since you can basically broadcast all over the world, then you don't need to have a very big percentage of people. It's probably enough with 0.0001% of the world, and you have a huge audience. And that way you know that the audience you have are really into the subject that you are talking about. So that could be a good idea if you are, for instance, selling drums. Then it's more clever to have a niched podcast, and it's a narrow niche about drum tuning, for instance. Last question. The podcast host, because you need to have somewhere to put your podcast. And this is a difference between other social media, because you create your podcast and you upload it, but you also need to have a program that distributes your podcast. You could make a podcast and just put it up somewhere on the internet, on a web page, and then you could say on Facebook, like, have a link and go here and download the podcast, or go here and stream the podcast. But then you are adding steps between your podcast and the consumer. So you need to have a podcast host, because that's where the RSS is happening. That's the program that distributes your podcast, and that's where you can subscribe to it. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything. So if I slightly repeat what I said in the beginning, there won't be anything about Instagram or Twitter in the exam. Half of the exam will be practical. You will make websites. You will need to make subpages on that website. You will need to know how to add content to your website, and you will need how to remove, because you probably use templates. And I don't want it to say lorem ipsum, like the Latin template text. So you will need to remove stuff that's not supposed to be there. You will also edit video clips, make titles, captions, not music, because then if you don't have headphones, it would be hard to do here. So you don't need to do that. But then when you have edited the video clip, you will need to know how to upload it to YouTube, and from there to find the link and put the link on your website. Because you will make a page on your website called video, and that's where I will find the link. If you don't know how to do this, you should go here. On the course website, we have tutorials. And it's not that hard, so even if some of you think like, oh my God, I don't really know how to do this, you still have a lot of time. There's one more week, and it's quite easy when you start doing it. Here we have how to create a website. 1, 2, 3 clips. And this is me, and in this case I use Jimdo, and you can use that as well. So here you get how to make a website, and here you have the elements on how to add stuff and remove stuff. Then we have about how to make a video. There are 2 clips here, part 1 and part 2, how to make a video, and I'll go through everything in Windows Movie Maker, or the stuff that you need to know. About making transitions, how to add titles, how to make captions, how to make end credits, and so on. And then I recently made one called How to Upload to YouTube. So you get everything from here, even if you have missed it before. That's going to be half of the exam, and the rest of it will be questions based on those questions we have talked about today. It will not be exactly phrased the same way, and it will be, but if you read this, I think you are quite ahead for the exam. Keep in mind, do not copy from anywhere during the exam. Also, it's a tricky thing. I think, as I said, you're allowed to use the internet, so if you want to check up things, Google something. It's allowed. But do not copy, because I will check every exam towards this system. The exam doesn't mean everything. you have worked a lot during this class, because I don't want to have a class where you do nothing, nothing, nothing for 3 months, and then we have this huge exam. So if you fail or you're sick or whatever, or you cannot come, then everything is... I mean, I think many of you need to pass the exam to pass the course. But even if you don't get a fantastic score, you can still get a fairly good grade, because it's only part of the course. But I need something, since you have had group work especially, I need to have something where I can distinguish you as individuals and to make your grades. Is there anything you want to ask about the exam or anything in general? Yes. 12:30. I doubted that anyone needs to sit here until 4 o'clock, but potentially yes.
From 12:30 to 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
Next Thursday.
Yes. And it will be here, but I don't know how many people show up. So we have the option that the computer class upstairs, and I think Sarah will be there. So it might be that some of you will go upstairs and have the exam there. So, and if you are there, because it might be hard for Sarah to answer questions about the exam, then you will come down here and ask me, because I will sit here. And when you have made your exam, because you will do it on your computer, you will create a Word document and you will email it to me, to my address, but I will give all of you a paper with all the instructions. And before you leave, and remember, especially if you are upstairs, before you leave, please come by and I will check that I have received your email. Otherwise, it could be a problem if you think you have sent me and I haven't received anything. So you come here and we just check that I received your email, and it has one link to your website, and it has one Word attachment. Because the Word attachment will have the answers from the theoretical part, and your website is kind of your portfolio for the practical work. So that's what I will check, and when I see that, yep, both are here, then you can leave. Okay, yes, please. If you can use your own laptop, yes. You can also use your own editing programs if you want to, instead of Windows Movie Maker. I know somebody uses a Mac here. So, do you have any more questions? If not, then have a nice weekend. Thank you for coming. I hope it was worthwhile. Going through it, probably heavy. I don't like speaking myself either for hours and hours, but now I think you have a pretty good idea what the exam will be about.